Prosperity meditation has the power to uplift your life. It helps you make the best decision possible. This is a decision that will work, a decision that will bring enjoyment and happiness into your future life. Imagine this situation. Greg and Becky are friends who meet at Starbucks after getting out of a testing facility. They run into Cindy when they arrive. Greg was taking a written test as part of what is required to be a pilot. Becky was taking a test to become a nurse. Both got failing results for their test.
I feel confused and depressed. I failed the written part of the test to be a pilot. I hate my life.
I know what you mean. That test was very difficult. I'm not sure I want to be a nurse after taking that test. What am I doing with my life?
I have heard of a process called prosperity meditation. Would you like to try it? This meditation is useful when you are confused or when the plans you have created for life are not working very well. It can help you create a vision of how you want your life to develop, and it can guide you in developing the inner strength necessary to make that vision a reality.
Sure, let's give it a try. I am definitely confused as to what I want, and I don't understand why I failed this test. I feel defeated and discouraged.
Sure, why not? Trying something which might prove useful is a lot better than simply complaining about life.
The first phase is the I am phase. The purpose of this phase is to get a clear vision of what you are or what you want to develop in your life. Okay, Greg, have you ever started a fire in the wilderness without matches, without a lighter, and without a fire starter?
You mean starting a fire using primitive methods like the American Indians or the cavemen would do? No, but I have seen TV shows where people do this.
When people start a fire without matches, what are the steps they take?
They make a bow drill or a fire plow or some primitive way or rubbing sticks together.
Wow, you really do know something about starting fires without matches. Suppose that you were lost in a forest and it had been raining. Suppose you were driving or riding a motorcycle and it broke down and you need to spend the night in the forest. What is the first things they do to start a fire?
Well, in the TV shows I have watched, they have to decide where they are going to light the fire. They need straw or something to get it going once they have a flame. They need a pile of firewood.
Smokey the Bear might have a suggestion.
Can they start the fire anywhere?
If it has been raining, especially if they are in a rainforest or something like that, they need to find a suitable location. They might find a cave or somewhere sheltered from the heavy wind. If there is a place that is dry, it would start better there. The Indians used to dig a hole in the ground and start it within the hole.
What if they try to light the fire on top of a mountain where it is really windy?
That would not work very well.
So one of the first things they need to do is to get in a good location. They need a location which is most likely to allow a fire to develop.
I suppose that is true.
It is the same with the first part of the I am stage. If you are surrounded by family members who are insulting you, or if you are in a physical place that makes you feel sad and miserable, then any results which come from the I am stage are not likely to be good results. The first step in the I am phase is to get to a good location.
Albert Einstein said that no problem is solved at the same level of consciousness as what created the problem in the first place. This means that however people were thinking when they created the problem, that same level of energy and that same attitude will not solve the problem.
Getting in the best location, or getting to the best place, has immediate short-term and long-term aspects. In the short term, it is about getting to a physically better place. This is a place where you feel uplifted. In the longer term, it includes finding ways to remove and isolating yourself from the negative and draining influences in your life. It is about more than just this, yet removing the negative draining aspects from your life is the start, even if only for a few minutes at a time. It is about physically and emotionally creating an emotional place where you will feel your best and be at your best. This will allow you to make the best decision and create the best you possible.
I get the point. Is that it, or are there any more stages?
Yes, getting to a better place is only the first step of the I am stage. There are more steps within the I am stage.
Before we continue, I'm having trouble following this fire metaphor. Would you be able to use a different analogy for me?
Another way to think about the first stage of prosperity meditation is this. Think about a baby being born. If you or a friend were going to have a baby in a couple months, what would be the first thing you would do?
I would start preparing the baby's room. I would color it either blue or pink, depending on whether the baby were a girl or boy.
Okay, so the first thing you would do is to start thinking about what the environment for this baby would be like. What else might you do?
It might be wise to cover electrical plugs and get safety equipment for the house.
Perhaps a little extreme for a new baby, but that is a valid point.
It is like that in the I am stage. For a new baby, you want a crib and a nice room. First, you want a cribe. You want the baby itself to be laying in a safe bed. Second, you want a room, that is to say, you want a safe, uplifting environment. You want your baby to be happy so that they will enjoy life. You want the room itself to be beautiful and be safe. You want them to be safe so that nothing happens that could deform them or cause them pain or hurt them in any way. In the I am stage, the first thing you do is getting to a better location. This means physically and emotionally. This is the crib. It is what immediately surrounds the baby. You start looking at what environment the new definition of yourself will be created in. Looking for the best environment means more than finding a happy, uplifting place. It means surrounding yourself by the beliefs that you are capable of manifesting real results. You would not allow anybody to make fun of your baby. You would not allow anybody to call your baby a piece of dirt. So it is about treating yourself as nice as you would treat your baby. If you want your baby to grow up to be the CEO of a company or to a movie star or to have the life of their dreams, you would make sure that your baby was empowered both with uplifting attitudes and with toys and whatever was necessary for growth. You would be willing to invest money in your baby. You would invest money to make sure that your baby was happy. So if this idea is your future you should be willing to invest money in your future you, for the purpose of allowing any idea you have the opportunity to grow.
Okay, I get it. I understand that you are saying that it is important to be in a better place as we seriously begin to create our own life. Can we get on with the next step?
Wayne Dyer had a quote, "The law of flotation was not discovered by contemplating the sinking of things." This may have originally come from Aristotle.
What does this mean? The law of flotation was not discovered by contemplating the sinking of things.
In the ancient past, all ships were made out of wood. The reason was because wood floated. People knew about metal, and they know that metal was harder than wood, but metal sank. Ships were not made out of metal because metal itself sank. The law that allows metal ships to float was not discovered by thinking about ships sinking.
The law of flotation was not discovered by contemplating the sinking of things.
So this is saying that if you skip this step and you insist on getting on with the process without actually doing the step, then your final results will not be as good?
If you actually follow the step, your results will be better.
Got it. What is the next step?
The next step is calibration.
Calibration. What is that? The process of configuring an instrument? I have calibrated the thermometer in my house, and I had on old car I rebuilt. I calibrated the speedometer so it would measure the speed correctly.
Calibration. In the context of creating a better life means creating a baseline for thinking wisely. It is the equivalent of getting firewood or getting help for raising a baby.
A baseline for thinking wisely?
Consider this. In the book 3 Feet from Gold by Greg S. Reed and Sharon Lechter, they talk about getting counsel instead of advice. Counsel is what a qualified professional tells you. Advice is what friends who don't have a clue what they are talking about tell you. If you make a decision based on very solid counsel, you are much more likely to make a great decision that will work and will bring expected results. If you make the decision based on advice from those who don't really know, then your decision is likely to not work. You are likely to create bad situations that you are not expecting.
So for example, when I was in school about to graduate, I was very undecided. The counselor in our high school told me I might think about being a bus driver. His reasoning was that statistically, bus drivers tend to be people who don't know what they want to do in life. My father was a well-respected doctor. He was great at his job. He told me to get a degree first, and then everything would come naturally to me. I followed his advice. In retrospect, Both people were not well qualified to give useful advice. The advice of this particular high school counselor was useless. While my father was a great doctor, he knew very little about the business world or how to succeed in business. In retrospect, given that we spent thousands for a college degree, we would have been very wise to have spent some money to get the best advice from somebody in industry who was truly qualified to give it. Such advice might have saved us a lot of frustration and might have made life work out much better than it did.
So the second step, calibration, means to get good advice.
That is only one side of it. If advice was all there was to it, then the second step would be get good advice instead of calibration. Advice is part of it, but there is more to the whole picture of calibration. If you alone in the woods and you were lighting a primitive fire without matches, you would not choose for firewood the sticks which happen to be physically near you. Your flame is precious. If you were alone in the woods, one small flame can take hours to light and can mean the difference between life and death. You want the best firewood you can find. It would be worth walking around for hours to select dry firewood that was better quality.
Likewise, with the baby, you would not let just anybody babysit. What if you had a babysitter who watched TV while the baby was by themselves in a different room? What damage could that do to the baby psychologically? You would want somebody who was qualified, who knew what they were doing, or at least somebody who cared.
The word calibration is a strange word. Why was this word chosen?
The idea of calibration is that by raising the energy and the intelligence of the advice you are receiving, you can actually change your fate in life. Think of aiming a cannon. Imagine that you are an acrobat and that you are about to jump over 10 cars. The aiming of this cannon actually changes your future fate in life. If you let your friends randomly aim this cannon, you could easily be shot low and will go a short distance before hitting these cars. If you aim this cannon straight up, you will go very high, but will not go very far before crashing to the ground. In such a situation, having the cannon aimed correctly could make the difference between a great outcome, which leads to publicity and money, and a terrible stunt that puts you in the hospital. Likewise, depending on the significance of the decision you are making, having the right influence can make the difference between a successful, wonderful relationship, a new career, a new lifestyle or quick-turn relationship, a job that flops, or a venture that drains your money and time, leaving you worse than when you started. Imagine actually changing fate itself.
I don't believe in fate.
If you slept all day every day, you would have a difficult time learning how to play the piano.
If you slept all day every day, you would not do very well in school or in your career. Yes, certain patterns could sabotage a person's life. Also, being in the right attitudes and having the right words during an interview, romantic date, or other critical moment could launch some interesting possibilities.
What about true fate, like Nostradamus predicting the future?
Many of his predictions did not actually come true.
Some people say that he predicted windows of opportunity for events to happen. They say that while the predictions that did not turn out, it was not that he was wrong, it was that he predicted something real that could have actually happened. It was in our collective fate to happen. It was a window of opportunity. But when the negative opportunity opened, we as a collective planet made the choice to choose a better fate.
So the idea is that we, as a planet, changed fate itself by our free will.
So think of fate as being like the results of a bowling ball. Given a certain speed, rotation, and direction, the ball is destined to follow a certain physical path. Likewise, with the bowling score for a specific person. If a person just casually goes and throws the ball, then certain outcomes such as a gutter ball are likely results. This person may roll a gutter ball over and over. This person is, quote, destined to get a bad score. Yet if the person prepares themselves before the ball has been bowled, there are things that can change this likely outcome. Sometimes just a single modification of technique can significantly raise a person's bowling score.
Okay, but what does this have to do with our previous discussion of calibration?
If you're trying to build something, or trying to change yourself, or trying to get a relationship, then you are trying to manifest. The idea is that whether or not this new creation actually works depends on your current level of calibration.
Assume that somebody from the future appears in your life and gives you a history book. a book that was written and produced 15 years in the future. This book is digital and contains the history of every person's life. You are able to read the history of your life as written in the future.
That would be very freaky. It would certainly cause me to think twice about how I was creating my new self.
Now suppose that you started changing what energy was in your life. Suppose you joined a different group of people. You started listening to different types of music sometimes. Now suppose that because of this future person and because of all the changes you started making, the text that was written in this future history book actually changed.
This would mean that your fate changed. It would be the equivalent of bowling a strike because you were shown a trick that improved your bowling game. What you were actually capable of manifesting changed because of the influences you had in your life. This means getting into a relationship that you are not currently capable of manifesting.
Yes, now we are getting close to the idea of calibration.
So as your calibration changes, then what you are capable of creating or achieving changes also.
Yes, as your calibration changes, what you are capable of manifesting changes also.
I'm not sure I believe that simply listening to different music and joining a different group of people can actually change fate.
First, you do not have to change your music. Second, this is only the first stage. When you change aspects of your life, then certain ideas will occur to you that would not have occurred to you before. This is the first stage. This is the I am stage. The purpose of this stage is to define a new idea or create a new I am. Making this idea actually manifest something into reality or creating a new part of yourself is what the next stages are about.
So the idea is that before we actually make the decision of the I am that will define much of our future, it would be a very good move to start thinking of our calibration and what we can do to raise or change it. This might include getting professional advice. It might include being around people who have the type of energy we want to acquire. It could include getting involved in organizations where the people in these organizations are calibrated in the right way.
Now, I am starting to understand that the first two steps, the crib and the room for our baby, are about more than feeling good. It is true that they are about uplifting our attitude so we are in a positive feeling place, but they are also about being surrounded by the types of influences that will put us in the right head space. This right head space may be different depending on what we are trying to achieve.
There is no contradiction between accounting and crying babies. One energy has nothing to do with the other energy. However, if you wanted to be an accountant, then filling your head with ideas of Robin Hood, of stealing from the rich to give to the poor, might have a negative influence. Depending on the situation, the Robin Hood ideas might signal red flags in the accounting profession. These two energies might be opposed to one another. If you were an accountant, then using phrases such as dirty money or evil rich people very well might create cross-currents where the energies oppose one another.
I suppose that if you want to get into any job, any relationship, or any situation, there are certain red flags that would set off alarm bells in the mind of any coworker or boss or partner.
All these things may be true, yet we are getting ahead of ourselves. For now, let's just have the basic idea that if we want to launch an idea or relationship or become something more than we currently are, then getting into the right place mentally and emotionally as best we can is essential.
Okay, what is next?
After the crib and the room phases, the next phase is the spark plug and scrapbook phase. Now is when we actually document and develop the idea. In out metaphor, it is when we light the flame or have the baby. Think of starting an engine. Think of multiple spark plugs firing. Think of cranking the engine several times before it started. When you turn the key on your car, it is not only one spark plug that fires. Many spark plugs fire to get the engine started.
With starting the fire, this is like multiple attempts to create the flame. Sometimes a small flame is created several times and goes out before the person gets a flame that lasts long enough to become a fire.
With the baby, think of multiple contractions. Many times the woman thinks the baby is coming, but it is not yet the time.
The way this whole process works is this. It is not that you cannot write down your ideas in the early part of the I am stage. It is not that you should not keep a list or journal of your thoughts. It is more a matter of focus and energy. The more attention you give to a thought, the more solid and crystallized that thought becomes, and the more difficult it is to improve that thought later. If you put your energy too much on your thoughts, then your thoughts will begin to grow and develop. In the early phases of the define phase or the I am phase, you are best served by keeping your energy and focus on the steps of raising the energy. Later, you are best served by seeking and getting advice worthy of the calibration level. For example, Greg, if you had written down your thought of, maybe I shouldn't be a pilot, then similar thoughts would begin developing from that thought. Yet since your mind is confused, you don't really know what you want. As the quality of the energy inside you rises, then better thoughts will begin occurring to you. As this happens, it is wiser to put more energy into recording and making a conscious effort to document and develop your thoughts. Have you ever had an experience where thoughts disappeared? You wrote notes down, and then the notes later did not make sense? The ideas and thoughts, which occur at emotionally high points, often disappear easily, and later you can't remember what you were thinking. Even if you write the ideas down, sometimes your notes do not make sense. Even if the notes do make sense, the energy that allowed you to generate them is often not there, and it is more difficult to keep the momentum of creation going. This is why it is so necessary to begin journaling positive thoughts as you are in the right energy.
In prosperity meditation, this is when the idea is actually generated. Often the idea will come out as many attempted ideas. These ideas can each contain fragments of the expected result. For example, suppose you are thinking of what career you want. You have been thinking of traveling to Italy. Actually, physically traveling might be complicated and expensive, especially as a career. However, this idea might be telling you that you want to connect with people and want a certain level of excitement in your life. So while this idea in its original state might not be feasible, it might contain part of the essence of what you want. In the spark plug phase, you begin keeping a scrapbook or a list of ideas. You are creating your I am, but you are doing it through multiple ideas that are sparking.
Yes, this is the spark plug phase. In this phase, as you start having thoughts, the final idea might not come to you in one single thought. The final idea of what you want might come in multiple thoughts.
For example, I have had this idea of traveling all over the world in my own plane. This idea might not be realistic because of money or time. However, this idea might contain the seed of wanting freedom and excitement. Perhaps the future plan for my life path, the plan which is realistic and which might actually come into existence, could include these desires within it.
I think I'm beginning to understand. At this phase, Greg should write his thought to be a pilot down. He might end up with a list of 5 or 10 very serious ideas of what he is trying to create. He could then focus on this list. He could carry it around with him, allowing these ideas to bounce around his head. From each idea, he could begin asking how practical the idea is and what about the idea he values the most. From this list, the final vision of what he actually does want could be created.
Once you have created a practical, solid idea of what you want to create or become, that is the end of the I am phase. Practical does not mean that you have done extensive research about it. Practical just means it is an idea that seems like it should be able to work or reasonably might be able to work. However, the life of a child from a baby to a young child to a teenager tend to merge together. We might pick a certain day and say, you are no longer a child, you are a teenager. In the same way, the define phase or the I am phase merges into the next 2 phases.
The define phase, called the I am phase, merges into the next 2 phases, which are the measure phase and analyze phase. Within these phases, there are some useful tools which can be discussed more in future steps. One useful tool is the stakeholder analysis, where you ask what right each person has to influence your life. You look at each person or each situation that is trying to influence your decision, and you ask whether that person has a moral right, and to what degree do they have a moral right to influence you at all? Do they have a legal right to be in your life, and to influence you. You ask how invested that person is in your future. Is that person trying to help you, or are they trying to help themselves by using you? Another useful tool in developing your idea is called the Kano model. Kano is K-A-N-O. This model says that there are certain things which satisfy us. The more we have of them, the more satisfied we will become. A little bit of these things satisfy us a little bit. A lot of them satisfy us a lot. Respect is such a thing. It is hard to get too much respect. If we have a little respect, we are a little happy. If we have a lot, we are more satisfied. Then there are dissatisfiers. These are things which we are miserable and upset when we do not have, or when we have very little of them. However, once we get enough, the value of these things go away. Sleep is an example for many people. Many people are unsatisfied if they are not allowed to sleep. However, once they have a weekend and are able to catch up on their sleep, if they have the opportunity to get more and more sleep, their life does not get better and better. This will not make them happier and happier. The value of these are different for different people. For some people, money is a satisfier. They are more and more truly happy as they get more and more money. These people are willing to work long hours in order to get more and more money. For other people, money is a dissatisfier. They are miserable when they don't have much, but as soon as their basic needs and wants are met, they no longer are willing to pay the price of working overtime in order to get more and more money. For some people, fame is a satisfier. They crave it. They want more and more, and they are willing to work extended projects and take legal, reasonable chances in order to get more of it. There are other people who want some degree of recognition, but once they are respected to a basic degree by certain people in their life, they are no longer strongly motivated to have more and more. At least they are not motivated enough to launch new projects or do more things in order to have it. This Kano model, K-A-N-O, is a way of thinking about what will produce true fulfillment. Contemplating this over a short period of time while in the spark plug phase of a new idea is a good way to modify your definition of yourself in the I am stage. The website allpeopleareconnected.com is a good resource for understanding this more.